in so many articles, that is referenced. Hungary's foreign minister traveled to Russia on Monday, this was in November of 2022, to take part in an international forum on nuclear energy, underscoring his country's persistently close ties with Moscow. A much more recent article, end of January, you went to Ukraine. That was your first visit to Ukraine. You were in Uzhhorod to meet with your Ukrainian counterpart Dmitry Kuleba. And it also refers to Hungary and your prime minister, widely perceived as the Kremlin's closest EU ally. If this is wrong, I think it's very important that you share with this audience what leads to this misperception, and how would you describe Hungary's relationship with Russia, and maybe why those interests are different than the way some other EU members perceive their own interests?
Why such kind of articles are written about us, about myself? If I have to summarize it in one word, I might say hypocrisy. I'm representing a right-wing party. I'm representing a right-wing government. Very patriotic, very right-wing, very conservative government. Now this goes totally against the mainstream, both in Europe and in the world. And we understand that it will never be digested that a right-wing government can make its country successful even if it goes against the mainstream. And even it goes against friendly advices of allies.
Petr Kocharhan, Harvard Business School. And my question is to Mr. Minister. We really appreciate you coming here and being open for the conversation with students. Through your responses, we see that you have many concerns towards the European Union. You, on multiple occasions, reach out to them. Please help us here, please help us there. And you say that there's no response. At the same time, European Union comes to Hungary and says, please help us with this defense package for Ukraine and support package. And then you come up with new processes, requirements. Every time, basically, there are some roadblocks. Don't you think that to have this unity, it needs to be on both sides? Some flexibility, but also coming to these budgets, it seems that Hungary, in fact, is the net receiver of the EU fund. So it's also a bit puzzling for us here to see why Germany, Belgium, Netherlands, all of those who contribute to the EU budget don't have any problems with this money being distributed to Ukraine. But Hungary, on the other hand, seems to be the one that keeps a very close eye on this funds. Thank you.
Well, I wish we would be net receivers. The problem is we are not. The problem is we are not, because the funds are frozen to Hungary. We are not receiving the money which should be paid to Hungary. Being a net receiver does not mean that you are under humanitarian support. And yes, we did have preconditions when it comes to 50 billion euros to be paid. European Union owes us a couple tens of billions euros, and they have very important preconditions, you see, because we don't get the money. So we had some important preconditions, they were met, and then we agreed. So I hope that this money will be used by Ukraine in a proper manner.
Hello, thank you so much for being here. My name is Max, I'm a student at the business school. I have a question for Minister Szijjártó. You mentioned a lot your pragmatic approach to the relationship with Russia. Now, does that pragmatism also then allow you to, in clear language and unequivocally, condemn the invasion of Russia into Ukraine? And if so, would you be willing to use your superior relationship with Russia to convey that message to the Kremlin?
I have done it already. Because it's very easy to say such kind of things here, for example. It's very easy to say such kind of things in Washington, in Brussels, in all European capitals. My friend, try to do it in Moscow. There's only one person here in this room who has done it in Moscow before a much bigger audience than this. You know who that was? Myself. I was sitting there at the meeting of the Energy Week, which was referred to by Karen at the beginning. Unfortunately, liberal journalists have forgotten about this statement of mine to be written in that article. I was sitting there on the Russian Energy Week, Deputy Prime Minister of Russia on one side, CEOs of the biggest energy companies on the other side, and thousands of people, 1,000. And I said it very clearly. This war is bad to us. This war is condemned by us. It would be really great if this war would be finished.
Minister Szijjártó. I'm Victoria. I studied political science at MIT. Hungary's relationship with Russia has come up a lot in this conversation. I just wanted to ask you about how Hungary sees Russia as a threat to NATO.
And whether we see Russia as a threat to NATO or not, what I can tell you is that, rationally speaking, I don't think Russia would risk an attack against a NATO member state. Why? Because of Article 5. So if pragmatism or logic still exists, then I should say that I don't see this threat, because that would be very illogical.
Alexei Prokopenko, the head of the American Fund, Ukraine Aid Center in the United States, presented to the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Hungary, Péter Szijjártó, a piece of a Russian tank burned in the battle for Kyiv. Their meeting took place during the European Conference at Harvard University. It was made in Russia and burned and recycled in Ukraine. Wear it as a keyring to your own house, so you do not forget what Russian terror is. Please remember the lessons of history and what Soviet tanks carried with them on the streets of Budapest in 1956, said Prokopenko when he handed over the metal fragment to the Hungarian minister. Earlier, the head of the Hungarian Foreign Ministry, Péter Szijjártó, during the OSCE Council of Ministers in Skopje, called to stop the supply of weapons to Ukraine because it prolongs the war.